What's up guys, I'd like to welcome you back to the GreenHulk garage. Today we've got some bad news. I took this out to the water over the weekend, started tuning it. Everything's running fantastic. I started getting into the higher RPM and it let go. I ended up having to get towed in and my first reaction was, okay, motor's toast, it's coming out, time for a rebuild. Pull the spark plugs, everything looked fantastic. So the spark plugs being good was a good sign. From there, I hooked it up to the laptop, looked at a data log from the run, exactly what happened, and that basically painted the whole picture. We're gonna start pulling this apart, but I'm about 99% sure that the flywheel bolts in this snapped. Now, if you come take a look at the data log, you'll see exactly why I think that. I already got the data log pulled up here, so you can see we're holding steadily at 8,800 RPM. What's interesting is we're only at 61% throttle, and the manifold pressure is barely over 11 pounds. But if you look down here, this is the cam sync angle. This should always be a constant line, and you can see right here, when the engine shut off, cam sync angle is all out of whack. This is telling us that the crank position sensor and the cam position sensor are not in sync. So more than likely the flywheel bolt snapped. So sure enough, I pulled the intake tube off and I could just spin the supercharger. So we got a failure down there. We're gonna dive into this a bit and make sure that this is exactly what happened, but I also have a theory as to why it happened. Now I may be overthinking it, but I've ran this engine and this supercharger for countless hours and beat the absolute piss out of it with no issues. Now it's no secret that these flywheel bolts are weak. If you should just pull them out and put ARP bolts in there. I didn't take that step, knowing that I should have, but at the same time I've spent all this time on this engine with zero issues. The only thing that I changed on it was going to the Callus Performance camshaft. What I think is happening is it's making so much more power with this cam installed that I was hitting that 8,800 RPM at only 60% throttle and 11 pounds of boost. Now, the supercharger doesn't care about the throttle position. At 8,800 RPM, this should be making about 17 pounds of boost, but the throttle blade is restricting that, so the manifold is at a lower pressure, but then you're also having an increased back pressure flowing onto the supercharger. So I think what happened is it was just putting more load on the supercharger and more load on the flywheel. I may be overthinking it, but I really think that was the icing on the cake for these flywheel bolts. We'll pull the intercooler tubing off of this to take a look. We're gonna hook up to the laptop. I'm gonna set it at exactly 61%. See that blade angle so you guys can see the restriction of flow. We need to start getting this stuff apart, make sure that's what broke, and ultimately this engine's gotta come out. So we got the exhaust supercharger off, a couple of the water coolant hoses off, and the supercharger looks fantastic. Not a single issue with that. But sure enough, I stuck my finger in there, the flywheel's actually flopping around, it's free spinning, which that is not a good sign. Those flywheel bolts are snapped, and this engine has to come out. But it's not the end of the world, it could have been worse. I knew better. I knew I was kind of playing with fire on this, but I've got the laptop hooked up so we can see all the sensors. If you actually come take a look at this, we're gonna hold this at 60% throttle. That's only 60% throttle right there. So you're hardly getting any airflow into this. That would be wide open. 60 is right there. So that is a major obstruction of airflow. And I think what had happened is it's just making so much power now with that Callus cam. You're turning high RPM at such a low throttle percentage. The supercharger is still making 17 pounds of boost at 8,800 RPM, but it's just not getting to the manifold. So by restricting this airflow, you've got a little bit more back pressure, if anything, on the supercharger, which puts more strain on the flywheel, and I really think that's what did it. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe one of you guys are smarter than I am and have a better theory. Maybe it was just the time for the flywheel bolts to break because they are weak. Now before I installed this Callus camshaft, at wide open throttle I was only at 9100, 9150 RPM. I didn't change anything other than the FuelTech ECU and the callus camshaft, and we're already at 8,800 RPM at 60% throttle. That cam is making a world of difference. We're making a lot more power now. I'm gonna have to add a lot of pitch to this impeller, and we're gonna get this engine out and convert to a 300 style supercharger. We're gonna hit it with even more boost and make more power with this. This is gonna be one of the sickest supercharged rxp-x 255s out there. So you guys can look forward to that. Braking stuff sucks, but at the same time, you break something, you learn something new, and you just make it better. So look forward to that video where we pull this engine out, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.